Okay, let's talk about sex. Did you know that, quote, unnatural sex that we read about in the Bible is any sex that's not procreative? One theme emerged that shifted our view of the non-affirming church and drove our deconstruction. That theme is the motivation to protect the institution, even as it diminishes and even destroys the people within. So today, we'll look at patriarchy and misogyny and how harmful and endemic they are.
Would it be okay if I were to tell you that I am afraid someday? So I call you up and you call me down. Would it be okay?
Well, hello again and welcome to the FreedHearts podcast, episode 26. So glad to be with you today. My name is Robert Cottrell, and I'm sitting across the table from
Susan Cottrell.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. It's raining outside where we are.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, that's kind of cool. Just a minute ago, we had hail, and I'm thinking, I wonder if they're going to be able to hear that on the behind our voices. But then the sun came out, and the hail went away. Welcome to Seattle. So today we're going to talk about patriarchy, misogyny in the church.
Woo!
Yeah, some light topics today.
Yeah.
So patriarchy, misogyny in the church. And when we talk about this kind of thing, again, we have to give you a trigger warning, a kind of a faith disclaimer here that we address religion so we can dismantle the roadblocks to love and inclusion. We don't want you to go to church or go back to church or leave the church. That's not what we're about. But we want to free you from this conversation in your head that sometimes is ingrained so deeply about all of this. And if you get triggered by talk about faith issues, we get it. We don't blame you in the least. If you've been hurt or excluded in this way, we're so sorry. We want to help prevent that kind of heartache and exclusion from happening. So this is a trigger warning because we want you to be safe. We'll talk about these things only to disarm them and to help you heal from the harm that's been done and to prevent harm in the future. We care about your heart. We love you so much. We care about your
really
heart
do.
and your safety and your well-being. And we are so glad you are here. And this is a safe podcast.
Yes.
So patriarchy, misogyny, did you have something? I can hear you inhale.
Yeah. No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay, we got our act together.
We can take it on the
If
road.
you're confused, I mean, we talk about these things, again, patriarchy, misogyny, the church. So if you're confused about some of the rules that have been conveyed to you, things you're supposed to do and not do, and all these rules that you have, if they seem sometimes mean or out of place or not in line with commands like love God and love others, love your neighbors yourself, above all else, love, not in line with lifting up the least of these.
Yeah.
What's behind that is this underlying current of patriarchy and misogyny within the church.
Yeah. If it does feel mean, your instinct is right.
Yep.
It is mean, those things that are happening. So one theme that emerged that shifted our view of the non-affirming or the rules-based church drove our reconstruction. And that
deconstruction.
Deconstruction. And that theme is the drive to protect the institution, even as it diminishes or even destroys the people within. When we began to see that, it was like, holy smokes, everything makes sense now. By contrast,
let me back up for a second on that. We've talked in the past about one of the first questions that parents will ask when their child comes out is, oh my gosh, what will the church say? Yeah. What will my friends say? What are people going to think about me? Well, we have heard from a number of powerful evangelical pastors who have become personally affirming, but they just can't or won't take the leap to bring their church there because, oh my gosh, what will people think?
Yes.
Even so it's the institution, it's the church over what's happening as a result of this church's beliefs and actions.
Into the people.
Yes.
When we get letters from mothers most of the ones I get are from mothers. We get them from dads too, and also from LGBT. And that's equal with mothers. And what we get a lot when we hear from mothers is, I'm not concerned about God. What I'm afraid of is the church. That's a horrible, horrible place to be. And it's a real indictment. If you're afraid of the church, it's an indictment of the church that you're afraid of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by contrast, Jesus' teachings were all about empowering the people and deconstructing the institution of rejection, patriarchy, misogyny, and racism. That's what made me realize I really didn't want anything to do with the institution.
Yeah.
I love the teachings. I love the teachings. I live by the teachings. But the institution is another matter altogether. So today, we'll take a look at patriarchy and misogyny and how harmful and endemic they are.
There's the song Amazing Grace, and it says, I was blind, but now I see.
Yeah.
We talked about this last episode, I think, but inside that sealed box of the non-affirming church, we had no idea. We just didn't see it. We got little glimpses sometimes because we always kind of irritated leaders.
Yeah.
But we got little glimpses, but we didn't really see it. As we look back now, it's like, holy beep.
Yeah.
It's
and we were the good ones. We were the nice ones. We weren't extreme and legalistic.
Yeah.
And still the things we didn't see.
It's so prevalent. And we see it so clearly now.
Yeah.
And we want that for you as well.
Yeah.
So, wealth and power, honestly, are created by managing the labor of others.
Wow.
The more people you control, the greater your wealth. More people means more soldiers to advance your economic and political will. And have we not seen that lately with current events? More people means more labor for you to exploit for profit.
Yeah. Have we seen slavery?
So wealth and power, it's funny, but wealth and power are created by inflicting that power on the powerless.
Yeah.
On those over whom you have control.
Yeah.
And from this comes the following base beliefs. So here we go. All right. So why are we going to go into this particular direction here about sex and homosexuality and children and sex acts and things like that? What is this? How does this relate to what we're talking about?
Well, because the non-affirming church and religious leaders have used it to keep people controlled. Yeah.
So as we deal with the LGBTQ community, that's an impersonal word. As we love on the LGBTQ community. And
love on's a little creepy too. But as we...
Hey, you know what I mean.
Yeah, as we...
care for.
Yeah, as we come alongside.
Come alongside. There we go.
Yeah.
I don't want to be creepy.
You're not creepy.
It's in my gender anyway, so.
It's not you.
It's not me. There's so much of this to control, who you love, how you love, what's right, what's wrong. Part of that, that's a big part of what those in power are using this kind of patriarchy and misogyny within the church to address this issue through this kind of control.
Yeah, just think about that. Why would a religious leader need to know what you're doing in your bedroom? Unless you're abusing somebody. Why would any leadership, why would an institution need to know that? Okay, go ahead.
Well, sometimes it's so no one looks in their bedroom, but that's a whole nother thing.
That's true. Sleight of hand, a red herring.
Yeah. So from this comes the following base beliefs. Number one, sex is only for procreation. The more babies, the better. Now, we also know, let's say why that was such a prominent part of Old Testament scripture was because that was a threatened people group.
Yes. Yeah. And they were trying to navigate their survival through being enslaved by Babylonians and dispersed in various areas and annihilated.
So making sure they didn't die out was the motivation behind a lot of these things that are used way out of context now.
That's right.
Sex is only for procreation.
Right.
Birth control is absolutely forbidden. Why? The more babies, the better.
Right.
Homosexuality is absolutely forbidden. Why? Doesn't produce any babies.
Right.
You know, a child produced by rape or incest is still useful. Again, it still furthers the line. Therefore, the woman must carry that child of rape to term.
Yes.
Sexual acts between a husband and a wife that cannot lead to procreation are forbidden.
What?
We've kind of, what?
We'll get to that.
Kind of thrown that out.
Uh-huh.
And in order to keep the patriarchy in power, women shall be encouraged or coerced to be the primary caretakers of children. This limits a woman's access to education, career advancement, holding public office. It keeps them down. It keeps them, quote, in their place, and it keeps men in power.
Yeah.
So that's the basis, the base belief through on which so much of the, quote, attack or condemnation of the LGBTQ community comes from.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about sex for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. Our podcast listeners just skyrocketed.
Right.
No.
Did you know that term that's used in the New Testament of unnatural sex that we read about, that is any sex that's non-procreative?
Wait, you got to say that again, because that's one of the big clobber passages.
Yes.
Talks about that sex is not natural.
Right. But unnatural sex, as it's presented in the Bible, is any sex that is non-procreative. So, it's like anything but straight up, we're going to have a baby kind of sex. Anything other than that, even that kind of sex at the wrong time of the month is called unnatural. Now, gay sex by definition is non-procreative, but I think that straight people also have non-procreative sex sometimes.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or what about that? I'm being very facetious. I hope you got that. Or think about the couple who's been married 50 years, or long past having children. Are they supposed to not have sex now because their sex is unnatural?
Or they're infertile. Or they're
infertile, or they're not going to have children for whatever reason.
Is their marriage not valid because of that?
Right.
Or
they're not supposed to have sex?
Right.
That's the interpretation that has been handed down to us by this patriarchal system. It is. Only in the last, I think, 100 years has that changed, that unnatural sex definition changed.
Mm.
And that part about women should not teach.
Yeah, can you talk a bit about this, about the moral majority of the 70s and how that really fueled that LGBTQ was not really a thing, or not
to be despised.
Yeah, not a moral, ethical kind of thing until the 70s. And what happened?
It was sort of an under the radar thing. And then Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson, and I'm not sure who else, created the moral majority because they wanted to enter the political arena. And to do that, you need to raise money and you need to galvanize your power base. And to do that, you need a common enemy. And they chose LGBTQ as the common enemy. That's historic fact.
And some other issues on that, quote, moral high ground.
Yes, that they were claiming moral high ground. And at the time, there were bumper stickers that said, the moral majority is neither, which is, I think, true. It was not a majority and it's not moral. But if you were around in the 70s, you remember how big a deal that was. Suddenly everybody's preaching against homosexuality. And Anita Bryant and her whole thing, and she, really made it this big thing. Mm. Her son has disavowed that later and said it was a huge mistake for her. It was wrong of her. There was a whole movement for political power.
Yeah. Mm. And control. That's right. And control within the church and financial selfishness and personal gain and all kinds of things like that.
Yes.
It's amazing. You talk about Anita Bryant's son, and there seems to be a pattern here of some of these fundamentalist, non-affirming preachers and their children being very, very different. Just a little example and shout out if you want to two actually, Jay Baker, who is the son of Jim and Tammy Faye Baker, and also Abraham Piper, who is the son of John Piper. So if you want to go have some fun, go look up Abraham Piper on social media and watch some of his TikToks. And
yes, they're great.
It's great.
You're like, oh my gosh, this is a product of that legalism, and he has disavowed all of it. And the thing of it is that if this kind of straight and narrow patriarchal teaching doesn't work for your children, where children are disavowing it, then you have to really question it when it systematically, the children are saying, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
Then it's time to reevaluate the teaching. If it stood alone and made sense, then they would be following it too.
Well, last week we talked about what happens when you do question the system. When you do it, you're just dismissed.
You're dismissed.
You're isolated, you're kicked out, you're dismissed because you're then a threat to anything that will crack open that box. And like you said numerous times, what we discovered is when you open the box you have God in, all heaven breaks loose. Right. And it completely undermines, in the best way, this kind of patriarchy and misogyny and power, but it frees you up. And it's amazing to do that.
Josh Harris is another one who wrote, I Kissed Dating Goodbye. It was hugely popular.
Yeah, the purity culture.
Purity culture. Well, he has disavowed all of it. He regrets all of it. So interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's talk about women in the church and their roles.
So there's that part about women should not teach or be pastor in, or pastor or be in really any position of power except childcare and food.
We had a situation with someone very close to us, and we were at a small seminar with an incredibly powerful, profound woman teaching about prayer.
It's the late Jennifer Kennedy Dean.
Yeah. And in the middle of this person that we were with, who we were close to, got up and left. And I went out to the hallway, and this person was a young man, and he said, I said, "What's up? Are you okay? Are you not feeling well?" And he said, "Well, I can't sit there." And I said, "Why not?" He said, "She's a woman. She has nothing to teach me." And I'm like, I didn't even know how do you respond to that? But
well, the interesting part of that is she was a woman when he walked in the room too. And so I wondered what she had said that he didn't want to look at. And so he left because she was a woman the whole entire time.
Well, and what that turns into then is, it's fine until they start to challenge a core belief or say something that's a threat to this person's not only beliefs, but their power and influence. What happens when that happens with this person's mother or this person's wife?
Right.
In the future. It
is misogyny, pure and simple.
Absolutely.
And Anne Graham Lotz, who is Billy Graham's daughter, who, might be as qualified as any in that line to speak for that kind of group. The first time she preached, a whole enclave of pastors in the audience turned their backs and sat with their backs to her. It's like, oh, are you kidding me? You knew I was a woman. Why are you here? If that is so objectionable, because they had to voice their dissent.
Yeah. So again, as you said, they're allowed to have roles like, you can run the women's ministry or child care. That kind of thing.
And this is not based on the Bible. Philip had 4 daughters in the New Testament, had 4 daughters who were prophets. Do you hear that taught about? Not very often, no. And of course, Deborah won the war. And Esther saved the kingdom, and those were just women whose stories survived the patriarchal telling. So we need to stop and look at everything every interaction with women. It was incredibly respectful and uplifting and venerating of them. So let's stop pretending God has no use for women except cooking, cleaning, and raising children. Uh-huh. That's patriarchal men you're thinking of.
Well, interestingly, Jesus trusted a woman with sharing the news.
Right.
Again, this is, that he was risen. So, I just, yes.
The first ones to come.
Yeah, the first ones to come.
The last ones to leave, the first ones to come were women. And they are the ones that he shared with. And there's all kinds of women leaders throughout the whole New Testament church in Acts that, are kind of overlooked.
Yeah. What do you do about this, Susan? It's so, last episode we, did everyone sigh on the count of three, and it's just like, we can feel like, oh gosh, it's so prevalent. And when you think, well, I'm going to change this in my church, and then you bring it up, then you're isolated and you're dismissed and you're shunned from your community and all those kind of things. And
so kind of why are we doing this?
Yeah. So what do you
do with it?
Yeah. What do we do with this? I know that some people out there, and we've talked about this countless times with individuals, is that whether or not you stay in a non-affirming church, if you have a gay child, in other words, you stay there or you leave, is between you and the Spirit. It's your choice. There's not a right or wrong choice in that. But when
there can be a
faced
lot of
with
variables.
When faced with this kind of system, this kind of patriarchy and misogyny that we just gave examples, been around for 2,000 years or thousands of years. What do we do in this? I mean, I don't want to just share this and have everyone go, well, that sucks. And then we're not doing this to bash the church. We're really not. We're doing this to say, hey, don't let yourself be gaslighted. What you're experiencing is real. We're naming something so you can say, oh, I understand. It's like a trans person that sees someone on TV that's trans and says, that's a name for what I've been feeling and I didn't realize it. And so it's that kind of thing. We're naming something to give you permission to experience what you're experiencing and call it out and say, okay, now I get to make some decisions based on what I'm seeing, but I'm not crazy. It's not me. It's not you, it's them, honestly. And so it's to give permission and help bring life to where you are. Yeah. And it's interesting too, that some of the stories that we love the most that are told about Jesus are his individual interactions with people and the change it made in their life. And he was much more interested than impacting that, letting the person know who was right in front of him that they're loved and that they're worthy and that they don't deserve the treatment that they've been given, than any kind of,
institution.
Institution.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we feel like, well, I can't change the institution. So what should I do? And it's really the next person who's in front of you.
Yeah.
The next person who's in front of you.
Well, and it's interesting that anytime you see Jesus angry, like spitting angry in the Bible, it is at religious leaders.
At the system and at religious leaders.
It's at the religious system and the religious men running it who are abusing people in their care and pretending that God is behind them. That's what he gets mad about. He's never mad at the regular person. And so according to Jesus, the least trustworthy person for counsel or wisdom or insight or correction is a religious leader. Now let that sink in.
Yeah.
The least trustworthy person is a religious leader because those are the ones he got angry at for abusing people with their power. So don't hesitate to call what you see, at least to yourself. You may not be able to do it to that person. You probably won't without paying the price.
Yeah. And those you love.
But you can own it yourself.
And convey that.
Yeah.
Share your journey with those you love and convey that to them.
You have to be safe. That's your highest priority. But,
yes. Yeah.
But yes, as you're able to do it.
So let's wrap this up here. I just want to say that once you accept all of these non-affirming Christian rules about marriage, sex, and procreating are intended, the purpose is to protect and build the patriarchy. It all begins to make sense. And when it begins to make sense, you begin to have peace and freedom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with morality. Honestly, it's about power and money and keeping men in charge. We hope this episode helps you understand more of what's happening and why, so your heart can become even more free.
Yes.
That's what we want for you. That's what you deserve. That's what serves you well, to free your heart to love and be loved. And part of that is understanding how just wonderfully worthy and loved you are, and standing against all the things in the systems that have told you anything otherwise. Any other message than that is a lie.
Yeah.
Anything that hurts like that hurts or is mean, is abusive. And we don't want that for you. We want your heart to be free. That's why we're here.
Yes.
So we love you dearly.
We love you dearly.
And we will talk to you
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Would it be okay if I were to tell you that I am afraid someday? So I call you up and you call me down. Would it be okay?
You've been listening to the FreedHearts podcast. We have extensive resources and vibrant community for you at www.freedhearts.org. Just come say hello. And if you have questions or issues or comments about the podcast, things you'd like us to talk about, reach out to us at podcast@freedhearts.org. The music is provided by Hannah Cottrell, our daughter, the Grammy-nominated Saint Sinner, and you can find out more about her at heysaintsinner.com. Please share this, subscribe, and follow on your favorite platform, and thanks for listening.